You're tuned into Man's Best Friend, the podcast all about everyone's favorite animal, which is, of course, dogs. And here we're going to be joined by a very special guest. I am, of course, your host, Doggy Doug. And I'm here with our guest, who's going to improv a dog-related name for themselves.
You've really got me on the spot there. I have no idea.
You could be like Yorkshire Terrier Terry. There you go. See, it's easy.
Right. Okay.
Golden Retriever Ryan. Man, I just gave you two. All right.
Jack Russell. There you go.
There you go. Hey, that's pretty good. Luckily, this isn't the whatever I said, dog friends podcast. This is the Photography Friends podcast. But we are going to be talking about dogs today, and we are joined by a photographer who knows a thing or two about dogs. And if you guys have been listening to this podcast for a while, you probably know who I am. I'm your photographer, Jared Poirier, and I am joined by another excellent photographer who's actually not named after, well, kind of, I guess, named after a dog breed. That's you.
Jack Jackson. There you go.
Jack Jackson. I always want to call you Jack Johnson for some reason, which is definitely not your name.
It happens a lot, don't worry.
Yeah, it's like your name is like too alliterative to be true, so people just won't accept it, right?
Right.
Yeah. Anyways, and we're going to talk about dog photography because that's what you do, right?
Dog photography, and I do some portrait stuff as well for people.
Oh, awesome. Okay, well, we can talk about both those things because those are both areas of photography that should be, well, interesting to me and hopefully interesting to the listeners as well. But before we get into that stuff, I just got to thank our sponsor, CloudSpot, the easiest way for photographers to deliver and sell their photos online. You get some beautiful galleries, some very simple image downloads for your clients, custom storefronts for sales. I've been using CloudSpot. It's a very excellent app. I think once you start using it, you're going to kind of wonder what you did before it. And you can get an excellent deal, 50% off the first 12 months by clicking the link in the description. All right, so now that we've done that, I can ask you the most important question of the podcast. Jack Jackson, do you have a dog?
I do. I have the best dog in the world. Her name is Jet Jackson, nice. Obviously. She's a boxer. Nice. She's crazy. She's a little bit like me. She has a lot of energy. She wants to keep moving and she wants to keep doing things.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good companion. Good to test like new gear on and stuff like that too, right? If you ever need it.
Do you know what? This is dreadful. I don't actually take that many photos of my own dog because I always need, I need someone to hold the strobe, and so I can't just go out on the fly. As you know, if I have an idea, I can't just go out and shoot. But so yeah.
Yeah, usually if I'm taking photos of my dog, even I'll get my wife to help out. You know,
yeah.
She can kind of be there to hold the dog or pose the dog or whatever. The strobe thing or whatever is pretty important too, especially for the style of photography that you do, right? So I'm interested to hear more about your dog photography and portrait photography. Definitely. I'm wondering how you got into the field of photography in the first place, though.
So I think, I worked, I can't believe this, but I used to work in finance for 20 years and I came across to Canada and I couldn't work whilst I was waiting for my PR stuff to come through. Not working is horrible. So anyway, I was at the dog park a lot with the dog and, I was just using my iPhone, taking photos, but getting obsessed. And then I got a camera and I got more obsessed. Then when I could work, I decided to start a dog walking business. So my camera was always with me. And that's how it started. I just got really obsessed. I have since stopped the dog walking, and I focus solely on my photography now.
Yeah, it's definitely a better gig than dog walking, you know? A lot of a higher barrier to entry. Anyone can walk a dog, but it takes a while to learn how to take really good photos of one, right?
Yeah, yeah. But it gave me a really good understanding of all different kinds of dogs' behaviors and how
Yep.
to, you know, I was going to say manipulate, but yes, manipulate them
Yeah,
to get
fair.
to get the best out of them in a photo shoot scenario.
Yeah, that can be really tough, you know. I think like another like analog is people who do a lot of like photos of kids and stuff like that, just like hyperactive creatures who are kind of running around all the time, and it's difficult to get good photos of them, right? And people often like see your photo and they're like, oh yeah, you know, just took out the camera and shot it. But I know from doing a little bit of dog photography myself, there's a lot that goes into it behind the scenes. Obviously, I wouldn't want you to give away like any of your secrets or anything like that. But are there some like tips to kind of get dogs to focus and get dogs to give a good performance for the camera that you'd like to share?
Honestly, I think like you say, it's similar to I imagine doing like baby or children photography. You've got to bribe them. Um,
Yeah.
so as long as a dog is treat motivated, like that is kind of key for me. Um, and there's other stuff that I do as well. It really helps if I have a couple of people with me on the shoot, someone to hold the dog, and then I can get them running in a straight line. Um, I have a duck caller whistle to
Oh,
really
nice.
get there. I want we want them to be very engaged. I want them to be focused complete. I want them to be obsessed with me, to be looking because I use a fisheye lens. The angles are so tight. I want them looking right at the camera. So I just want them to be obsessed with me. And normally it takes five minutes or so, as long as they know where the treats are coming from.
Hmm.
Um, I can usually do okay. Um, so really, it's just bribing,
Yeah,
bribing.
bribing and having an assistant there as well, right? Like you were saying, is usually pretty
Yeah.
essential for what you're
The
doing.
the other thing, and you know, it's so easy for dogs to be distracted. So if I can shoot in a quiet location where there's no dogs or other people, that's good as well. And that's harder said than done in Toronto.
That is one of the challenges of Toronto is even getting a moment of peace.
Yeah. But I'd far rather be shooting outdoors for me personally than in a studio.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I'm like that as well. Where I really enjoy the kind of the more creative aspect and just like spontaneity, right? Of when you're just like shooting outdoors and maybe the weather changes, maybe you're trying a few different locations. It's a real chance to be creative, right? And that's to me that is more fun than the studio thing, where you have like perfect control.
Yeah, I think it's definitely harder, like you say, but for me, I think the dogs enjoy it more. And so if the dogs enjoying it more and just being kind of more natural, then yeah, yeah, it's the only way for me.
For sure, for sure. In terms of like specifics, when you're shooting, I think one of the hardest things that I've come across, like especially if you're shooting like dogs who are running, like action shots and stuff like that, is like nailing the focus, right? And like that can be really hard, especially like it's mostly photographers who listen to this, Jack. So we can get all like detailed and shit and really nerd out about photography, right? So especially if you're like wanting that bokeh and you want to be using like those wide apertures, like it can be tough to nail focus. Like, do you have some tips for that in particular?
Um, I just so for me, I just I have a dog running in a straight line directly towards me, and so I will whoever the dog is most attracted to, I will have them standing right over me. I'll be lying on the ground. I use back button focus. I've done that. I've done that since I first found out about it.
Use what sword?
I It's called back button focus.
Back button focus.
Yeah. So I just set the focus point, and then it tracks as the dog comes towards me.
Okay.
Um, there's probably a better explanation than that, but that's what I use. But since in the last, when did I buy it? I just bought the new Canon mirrorless, which has the animal tracking feature on it.
Yeah.
The animal eye tracking
Yeah.
feature.
Is
on
it R5 that you got?
that,
Maybe.
that's the one. Yeah.
Man, you spent $5,000, and you might want to know what it's called.
I'm dreadful. I'm dreadful. I don't care for the names. I just care for what
The
for what
good
it does.
photos, right? Yeah, you don't get too nerdy about the gear. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's so um so that certainly helps as well.
Yeah.
And then it's just practice. It's just, getting that solid position on the ground, knowing exactly what the dog is going to do, which is hopefully come right towards me. Yeah. And also, to be honest, I will do that shot as many times as I can get the dog to do it. So
Yeah.
it's all about, as soon as that dog has stopped, getting the owner to leash it up and walk it back. I don't want it running all over the place. I don't want it, I want it to be high energy. So I hype the dog up.
Mm-hmm.
I get the owner to hype the dog up, and then I do the release. So we just get that burst of energy right towards me.
Yeah, that's really interesting, man. It's almost like a similar approach that you might do on like a film set or like a short film or something like that. Like you get your actor in a certain mindset, a certain zone, and then you just like run takes like as long as you can until you're like, okay, we absolutely have it in there somewhere, right? And review it. For me, very similar thing. I mean, the opposite side of the company spectrum. I actually, when I upgraded, I switched over to Sony. But on my A7 IV, it has the similar thing, the dog or whatever animal eye focus, and there's like a bird eye focus setting as well. Yeah, just find like if you have that and you do like a burst mode, right, and can't really go wrong for those like action shots. You're pretty much gonna nail the eyes, and most of the shots you'll have good ones that you can use, right?
Yeah, and like you say, it's quite. I have to do it numerous times just because there's that sweet spot, and the dog is in it for like 1 second, where I can get the real blur of the background.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, and it comes down to how many times I can get the dog to run towards me.
Yeah, sometimes they get distracted or they just want to go and do something else, right? Like you're only going to get them. They're like fussy talent.
Yeah, and it's all down to finding the quietest spot where there's the least distractions, like instructing the owners as well. Because obviously they understand their dog, but they don't understand the photography and what we're trying to achieve and how their dog is going to get bored after a certain point. And I've just got that narrow timeline to capture.
Yeah.
What makes them happy.
Yeah, whenever you can prep your client, and kind of set expectations, like that's one of the biggest things for me. Okay, like for photography, yeah, but definitely for video work, especially. I find that like clients tend to think that it's going to happen a lot like quicker than it actually does, right? And they'll be like, "Oh yeah, we're going to shoot like these photos and a couple videos. That should take like 3 hours, right?" And you're like, "No, it's going to take like 6 hours or 7 hours, right?" Just to explain that, like everything that goes into it, that you do have to arrive at the location, set up the gear, and then immediately, not everyone's going to be giving the performance that you want, right? So establishing that with your clients, something that I think a lot of photographers learn through trial and error, but that's one of the things that we try to do on this podcast is like help you to not have to make your own mistakes, right? Maybe that's a good place to kind of branch off. I love talking about mistakes. So were there any like mistakes that you made early on in your career, maybe methods of photography that you tried out, or certain like demographics that you're trying to work with, and it just wasn't for you? Anything like that?
Oh, so many.
Okay, which one? Tell us one of them.
I don't know. I think maybe I've always had a tendency to like I'm such a perfectionist, and
Mm,
I want to make the client so happy, and I just want to the I, just so many. I would maybe try and do what the client wanted when really I knew what we needed to do.
hmm
And it was just kind of having the maybe even the confidence to say, no, this is how we're going to do it.
hmm
And now I'm very good at that. A
hmm
client will say, no, oh well, let's do this. Or, a client will say, well, my dog can jump up in the air, and I'm using like a fisheye, so I get, I'd have a picture of the dog's stomach,
Yeah.
and it's just kind of I'm always super tactful and polite, but just just trying to now I will manage their expectations prior to the shoot. I will give very clear direction. Other things I've done wrong, pricing, I've done that so
Yeah.
wrong on so many different occasions, just thinking, oh no, everyone wants digitals, or I just and it's always been, oh, I want to make the client so happy, but now after, and it's taken years, I'm I think I'm 5 years into photography now, and I feel that I'm just at the point where I'm it's all kind of coming together, and
Hitting
I'm
your
getting
stride. Yeah.
getting it right. I think anyone can be a great photographer, but that doesn't mean that you can make money in the business. And I so I've started. I'm restructuring my business with my pricing, and it feels good for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, again, for yourself, you also have to do that thing that I was saying for the client, right? Like, be realistic. You need to be realistic with the client to set their expectations of like the amount of work, and I feel like for yourself, you have to be too, right? Because sometimes you'll really overestimate how easy something's going to be. You'll be like, oh yeah, it'll be simple, and then you're looking at the amount of money that you got paid and the amount of work that you did and re-edits, and you're like, oh man, shaking your head, going like, I need to charge more. I think that's probably like the biggest challenge that people have, is like establishing that like pricing, and yeah, like what you're saying as well, like having the confidence to do that, right? Like, where does that come from, do you think, the confidence to like put out a price and stand by it, and like stand by your style of photos that you want to do?
Um, I don't. It's taken me a while. So I've been working with a business coach, a very well-known photographer in Australia, and she just said, "Look, Jack, these are the boundaries. You set you set how it's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And just someone actually saying, you can do this. You can. This is what you want to do. This is what's going to work for you. If people don't want it, they're not your clients." And it was just honest. I don't know. Something has really shifted. Um, Something has really shifted, and uh, yeah, just going back to what you're saying, people don't necessarily, lots of people say, well, can I be included with my dog in the photo? And then it's all of a sudden, can my husband and my two
Mm-hmm.
kids? And then they don't understand that I'm trying to, you know,
That you have a vision.
well, yeah, I have a vision, but I would have to prep that kind of shot, and then I have to get the dog on the level with the humans. So then we've got like four people sitting on the ground and it's wet,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm trying to get lots of eyes looking at me, and then a dog sees another dog, and it can be chaos. And so, and like you say, these things take time. and they just, all they see is a picture on Instagram that looks really cute, and they don't know that I've scouted out a location, that that it took half an hour to get one shot.
Yeah, sometimes it's just like pricing it not enough for a while, and then that's always the best way to like solidify a lesson for me, is like just fucking it up enough times where I'm like, oh, okay, I need to stop doing this to myself. So I don't know. Hopefully you guys can spare yourself that and charge enough money. But you're absolutely right. Like I think that a lot of us, like as photographers, we kind of trap ourselves in that mentality of like, oh well, this is what people are going to pay, and they're going to run us this way, and the deliveries, like we're going to just have to do it like how the client wants every single time, right? It's when you stop and realize that like, no, you're in control of a lot of things. You actually have a lot of power to define things. And yeah, being able to say no to a gig, like it hurts, but I do it sometimes, right? And you learn to enjoy it, yeah.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And don't get me wrong, Jared. I still want to make the client really happy, but I know how to. I've been doing this long enough now that I know how, I know how to do that without. I I know how to do that, and doing it this way is going to be better in the long run for everyone.
Yeah, and having the strength to do that, and you do have like your own style. You're saying that you have something that you want to achieve, and a look that you're going for. Maybe we could switch gears a little bit and talk about that, like your approach to style. Do you think that you need to, because like me personally, that's one thing about your photos, and like one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the podcast. Like your stuff definitely stands out. There's other people like shooting dog photography, obviously. I think that you have like a pretty well established style that people see it and they're like, oh yeah, like this is recognizable. I've seen this work, and people know that it's from you. Are there insights that you could provide us? Like, what do you think that you're constantly kind of experimenting? Do you try out a lot of different things, or do you kind of find your spot and stick to it?
So I've been really, really bad at kind of, I found the shots that worked and the location that worked, and I kind of stuck to it. And it's just recently, in fact, a client asked if we could go to this new location, and it was like 40 minutes away. And I thought, well, I'll have to scout it. For whatever reason, I said yes, and I'm so glad I did, Jared, because it just gave me other options to be more creative, to get different shots, and just to challenge myself a little bit. So I am trying to, it's a fine line. I do want to challenge myself and offer clients more options. But at the same time, there's only so many hours in a day. So there's only so many different locations I can scout, and there's only going to be so many different locations that are suitable. So I've been bad. I got stuck in a bit of a rut of doing the same thing. Um, yeah, I'm going to try and be a bit more open to certainly different locations.
Yeah. I don't know if that's bad necessarily, though. I mean, that's kind of the recipe for success for a lot of people, right? Like, I don't know, this is a dumb example, but if you look at like the most like dominant kind of form of media right now, it's like Marvel superhero movies, which are very just like, we're just going to do the same thing. A lot of popular bands, they just kind of have been doing the same style of music for a long time. I think that is like one path to success, is finding a style and like sticking to it in like a very hardcore way and just doing that for years. Like you would agree that some people are successful that way, right?
Oh, for sure. And my style is staying pretty much the same. I guess I just got stuck in a rut of doing the same locations and the same.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I'm just trying a few different locations. And also I had hesitated about doing sunset shots
Yeah.
because it's busier, dogs are more distracted. Anyway, I've kind of opened that up and found a new location that isn't as busy. So yeah, I'm trying to open things up a little bit. I think my style, I'll always use the fisheye lens. I love it. Or, if not a fisheye, then um, a wide angle
Hmm.
lens. Yeah, and I think what's her name? Hannah at Studio. She has a similar kind of style, but she's indoor. But I don't think there's anyone else in Toronto doing those, the fisheye, the strobe, the big backgrounds. And I love it. And I'm a huge fan of Cat Race in the UK and oh, what's her name? I'm dreadful on names.
Doing great.
I have her book.
You can send it to me later.
All right, I'll send it to you later. Or
Yeah,
Google it.
yeah, it's that balance of experimenting enough and also having your style, right? What is it about the like fisheye lens look that you love so much? Like, what is it about the fisheye thing that attracted you to that?
Kylie Greer. Her name is Kylie
Kylie
Greer.
Greer,
Yeah,
awesome.
she's awesome. Because it just makes dogs look comical. It distorts them. They're a bit more cartoonish. Like, just makes people happy. Like, we
Yeah.
need happy right now. We need happy. And that's, I don't know. I just think it looks really cool. You can get uh, really vibrant, intense colors with the fisheye and the flash. Um, you can capture obviously the landscape, which I love. Uh, just like shooting at sun. I'm obsessed with like sunrise and sunset. I love everything about it. I love it. It's my go-to for sure. Um,
Yeah, I find it works really well for what you're doing because a lot of people use it for like another good application is like street photography. It's very popular in skateboard photography, especially, right? But I think for what you're doing, it does work really well. It shows a lot of like it's quite dynamic. It shows a lot of the personality of the dogs as well, especially like the action shots, like getting so close up to their face. Like I definitely understand the impetus behind it. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, they're just happy, and goofy, and then you can capture action with it, like with I'll do the peanut butter shots and get their tongue going all over the place, and um catching a treat, so they it's just something a little bit different.
For sure. Uh, if we can, I know that you're not a big gearhead, but a lot of myself included, I have to confess I'm a bit of a gearhead myself, and some of the people who listen to this podcast, they want to hear the gear talk. Jack. So, you said that you're using the. Can you indulge us? Can you indulge us with some gear talk?
Well, I can try. I might have to give you the details later, but I can try.
Give me that gear or something.
I like that. Gear. All the gear.
Gear. Okay, all right. We're gonna do our best here. If you got to look them up, I'm pretty good at just like talking, so I'll just talk and you can look it up quietly on your phone if we get lost at any point. So you said you have the Canon R5 now. You were using a like Canon DSLR before that, I assume.
Yeah, I went through about four
Holy shit!
ATDs.
Wow, nice. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was dreadful because I used to take them to the beach, dog walking,
Mm.
absolutely. Anyway, so I'm super careful with them, especially my new camera. I'm not taking that anywhere near the
No,
beach.
quite a difference in price there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Uh,
so then you switched over to the R5, and what lens? So you mentioned like your main lens is like a fisheye. Are you able to tell us like the focal length and like f-stop on that, or is that just going too far?
no, so the fisheye it's at 8 to 15. And
8 to 15. Okay, wow.
yeah, yeah. And then with the f-stop, um, I will ideally I'll go if I can do, if it's a really clear day with sunshine, if I can get to f18 or something like that, that gets the colors really contrasty, really, and I can almost, what's it called when you get the sun into a
like a lens flare?
No, like a sun star. If I can just get the sun, if I can eclipse it with either part of the dog or on a rock, I can get a sun star if I go to about f18.
Wow.
Sometimes I don't have the available light, and I might be down at f 7.1, but I don't want to go. So between about f7 and f18, 22.
Yeah, I'm noticing with like quite a few of your photos actually now that I look at it, not a lot of them have like a lot of bokeh, right? Like it's usually kind of everything's in focus. Some of your newer ones you're experimenting more with like that like depth of field, shallow depth of field. But yeah, that's really cool. And then the strobe light thing, just to add like a shitload of light, right? You'd rather have that than grainy photos, I guess.
So it depends. So, I mean, with my lenses, I use the fisheye. Then I've got an 8 I think it's a 15 or 16 to 35, 24 to 70, which I don't use too much, and then 70 to 200, which I do use a fair bit, and that's a go-to for dog photography. So with that lens, sometimes I will pop a bit of strobe on. I don't need to, but sometimes I will, and kind of depending on the coloring of the dog or just the environment. With the fisheye, I will always use a strobe. My strobe is a Godox. It's the middle one, Godox. I'll get back to you on that one.
That's okay.
And again, I went with that because it's battery operated, which obviously I need as an outdoor dog photographer. And it's not so big in terms of carrying it around, but it still lasts. It would last, like in the middle of winter, I may need to change a battery, but other than that, it's perfect for a 2 to 3 hour shoot.
Yeah, I would actually very strongly recommend Godox lighting, like the flashes and that stuff. Pretty much everybody at the camera stores, when you go down to like Downtown Camera or Henry's. Henry's has a new location. Not sponsored, by the way. Just a free shout out for those guys, right? They always recommend VizTech as well. Can't leave VizTech out. They always recommend the Godox lighting. Like, it's one of those places where it doesn't really matter that much that it's like a brand name thing, you know? So I think you can like save yourself a little bit of cash. And then for that like lens collection, so were those all lenses that you had from before and you're like dropping in an adapter, or did you like literally go out and buy all new lenses for your new mirrorless?
Oh no! Oh my god! Oh, I wish.
Yeah.
I wish. No, I use an adapter, and
okay.
When I got the adapter and the camera, they said it didn't make a difference. I would still like to get, the new lenses.
And a difference in terms of what?
So particularly for my running shots and the focus, I'm concerned. I'm concerned that adapter. I don't know. The guy said it wouldn't make any difference, but. I don't know. I do want to get the new lenses, but it's not within my budget right now.
What I've heard is that because the mirrorless are thinner, right? And because the adapter is essentially like designed to make the overall body the exact same size as a DSLR, that's why they say that like there shouldn't be any difference in the autofocus. But I don't know. Canon could just be saying that, right, to make you want to like stay in that system. Because one of the weird things about Canon now, ever since they upgraded to mirrorless, is you can't use aftermarket like lenses anymore, right? Like the E-mount system, like the Sigma, and like those types of lenses, they're not an option.
Right.
Tamron. So yeah, like but Canon is still pretty awesome. I decided to go with the Sony this time around, but I have used the R6, and it's a decent camera, right? Like I don't know. What do you think about like mirrorless? Like, was it worth it for you to upgrade? Are you absolutely loving it, or are you kind of missing the old ways of things?
Oh my God, I love it. So one of the things that I struggle with often is because I like to shoot at sunrise, and because sometimes I'm doing so fairly low light, and then it's running dogs. I really struggle with light. For the ISO, I can whack it up to 2000, and it's no problem. I could never do that with my old camera. Like I couldn't go above 400 ISO. So for me, it's made a huge difference. The animal eye tracking, it's a go-to camera for
your
dog photographers.
for your type of work. That's a godsend, right?
Yeah.
Or a dog send rather.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, yeah, I imagine I like couldn't even imagine trying to do that. Like imagine manually focusing like a moving dog. One shot out of every like 2000 is in focus, I guess, like that's not great. So other than that, like other types of photography that you're into, we've spent the whole episode talking about dog photography, which was kind of the goal. But I do want to hear about some of your other work, some other stuff that you've done. Like you mentioned portraits and things like that. Like, is that still something interesting to you?
So another huge part of my work, and sometimes it actually takes up more time than my dog photography, is the project work that I do, which is documenting LGBTQ people and rescue dogs.
Oh, cool.
So that's what took me across Canada this year. I got sponsored by Pet Value to travel across the country, exhibiting my work and finding more people to take part in the project. So it's hugely important to me.
And that's the doggy dates thing, right? Or
that it's called the Don't You Want Me project.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. It's just been, I don't know. I just absolutely love it. And it's, sometimes I'm torn between the project and my dog photography. So I kind of split my time equally between them right now. We're working on a documentary for the project. That's just in the early stages of development, and I also hope to do a book for 2024.
Wow.
So yeah, it's
so you're going to be busy that, and your new YouTube channel that you're going to do weekly that you told me about. Your new
there
podcast.
Is no YouTube from me. I've got enough to keep me busy, but yeah, the project work is hugely important, and I've just met so many great people through that, and just the possibilities are endless with that, really. Right now it's just in Canada, but
well, it's still related to a lot of your passions, right? So it all kind of feeds back into each other, I find, and just keeping you like passionate, keeping you engaged with photography and dogs is very, very important. Any way that you can do it. So that's awesome, man. If people want to check out some of your photography, I mean, we've been talking in specifics about your photography throughout this episode. It might be really helpful if people are able to check out some examples. Probably is Instagram like the best place to do that?
Instagram or the website. Yeah, so I've just rebranded. So it was Doggy Dates Toronto. It's now Jack Jackson Dog Photography, and on there's also a link to my project work. There's a really cool video of the whole tour that we did this year, which people can check out.
Cool.
Yeah.
And the Don't You Want Me project as well. There's like a website, Instagram, and stuff for that.
There's a website and Instagram for that. It can all be accessed through my Jack Jackson Dog Photography. But yeah, exciting things coming on that.
All right, awesome. Yeah, well, thank you, Jack, again. Thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy life. I know that you've got a dog to take care of. I know that you've got photo editing to do. So thanks again for coming on and sharing some photography wisdom with everybody today.
All right. Thanks for having me, Jared.
And if you guys want to check out this podcast, I mean, you're already doing it, but you can find us wherever podcasts are, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're even on YouTube now. Been getting some decent views on YouTube, so that's cool. Thanks for that. You can find us on Instagram. Jack will send me some of his favorite photos, and I'll put them up on our feed so you can see some of his beautiful work. And of course, a huge thank you to our sponsor, CloudSpot. You can click the link, you can get 50% off. And since I know that Jack loves improv so much, I'm going to leave him the something random. Take it away, Jack. Give us something random to end the podcast.
No, I do not like improv. You're cutting that right out of it, Jared.
Who let the dogs out? Woof, woof, woof.
Yeah, something like that.